Shalom, people. This is Brother Laws coming at you with another video, and I got my lovely wife with me again.
Shalom.
And want to talk tonight about how to operate now that we are living in end times. The apostles and Paul knew that when they were writing in the Bible, New Testament, that they were living in the end times, but we are living in the end times. So if we look back to what they wrote, then it's our blueprint for today also that we can look to help us, because they live with the expectation that Yeshua was going to come back that in the time that they were living in. And they wasn't wrong in their thinking, because a lot of times people say, well, it was certain things that had to happen before Yeshua came back or whatever. But of course, them not knowing the unfolding of the understanding of the scriptures, they were not incorrect in their way of thinking. Just like right now, we feel, or some people feel, that in August 2019, and I don't know why they believe in that, but it's some people that believe in August 2019 that there's going to be an exodus of black people from this country. And I don't believe that. I believe that we're gonna see an increase in the natural disasters and stuff that's coming on the world, not just the United States. I do believe that Yah is getting our minds as black people and all the nations that we are in the understanding that we cannot think that our existence is gonna improve in the nations that we are in, but I don't believe that it's going to be an immediate exodus right then. I think that it's going to be like when Moses and his brother Aaron went back to Egypt, and it caused such a ruckus with the Pharaoh that he made the Israelites make the straw without bricks, and their life got harder. So I believe that's what's happening, and I don't know how long that process is going to take, but I think Yah has to get black people in all the lands that they were in to such a state that they'll be biting at the bit to get out of the place where they're at, because it's only going to be the natural, it's going to be the natural remedy. But the thing is, where would we go? So we got to know, while we in the process of waiting for all these things, however long it takes, how do we operate in the end times? One of the things that Yeshua told the disciples, he said, when you go to a certain city and you preach and they don't receive you, he said, shake the dust off your feet and continue on to the next city. And you remember he had given them the warning in Matthew 23 and 24 about things that were going to happen about 70 years after his death, about when Jerusalem is going to be compassed with armies. He gave them the blueprint about how to escape to the mountains, and he told them, I hope that your fleeing is not on the Sabbath day. He was letting them know how to operate in the end time, so that when the armies of Vespasian and his son came, they knew exactly what they needed to do. And that's why we probably exist today, because we know that over 1 million Yahudim fled into Africa, because they knew that Yeshua had warned them, which shows to me that a whole lot of our people at that time did receive the message of Yeshua, or they wouldn't have never got. Now we know that some of them did get captured by the Romans, and they got brought into back to Roman slaves, and a lot of them did go into slavery, but a lot of them understood what they needed to do. So I would say the same thing, because as we see the oppression of the people of color in the different places of the world increase, we need to know how to operate on a natural and a spiritual level. And so we want to talk about a little bit about that tonight. We're going to be coming first from 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, starting at verse 14. He said, "Wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, be diligent that ye may be found of him in peace, without spot and blameless, and account that the long-suffering of our Master is salvation, even as our beloved brother Paul also, according to the wisdom given unto him, has written unto you, as also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable rest, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. Ye therefore, beloved, seeing ye know these things before, beware lest ye also, being led away with the error of the wicked, fall from your own steadfastness, but grow in grace and in the knowledge of our Master and Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach. To him be glory both now and forever. Amen." And then we're going to go to Romans, the 13th chapter, starting at verse 11. He said, "And that knowing the time, that now it is high time to wake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk honestly as in the day, not in rioting and drunkenness, not in chambering and wantonness, not in strife and envying, but put ye on the Master Yeshua HaMashiach, and make no provision for the flesh to fulfill the lusts thereof." We got some more scriptures we're going to read, but we're gonna look at these right here real quick. And one of the things that sticks out to me about the First Peter is the words, being found of him in peace, or shalom, without spot and blameless. So one of the things that that states to me is that while we see all this turmoil and chaos and everything, that we do not allow fear to govern our lives, that we must be at peace. And remember, we talked about the fruit of the Ruach, the Spirit, on one of our videos, and how it is a supernatural ability for a person to be in a have a feeling of security, no matter what is going on around him or her, that he or she has that assurance that they are going to be okay. Sort of like the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they were approached by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar said, "If you don't bow down and worship the idol like everybody else, I'm going to throw you into the fire." And they said, they didn't get, obnoxious with Nebuchadnezzar. They was respectful in how they addressed him. They said, "Know ye, Nebuchadnezzar, that," in fact, let's just go there and we'll read exactly what they stated. And you will understand what I mean here. Daniel. And while I'm getting this, if my wife got anything she wants to add to what I'm saying, she can go ahead while I'm trying to find it. Talking about how to operate in the end times. Do you have anything you want to say about that? Nothing. Okay. Okay. Now, okay, here it is. It's Daniel, the 3rd chapter, and verse 3. I'm sorry, chapter 3, verse 12. It said, there were certain Yahudim whom thou hast set over the affairs of the promise of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the trumpet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that Elohim that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered, notice what they said, and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our Elohim, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Now notice how they were, calm and their delivery, short to the point. And that's what, Peter said we need to, I'm not saying it's going to be in every situation. It should be. But we need to try to move ourselves in that direction, that we are not operating in fear, because that's how the enemy is going to get people to do certain things in these end times and make certain moves that they should not make. One of the things that always come to my mind, and my wife might remember, she might be a little bit younger to remember, but I remember the Jim Jones Guyana incident when I was a little boy, being on the news, because coming out of the 60s into the early 70s, there was a lot of oppression of black people and different pro-black groups, with COINTELPRO still being in full effect around that time. And Jim Jones capitalized on that in the city of Oakland, where in San Francisco area, where the Black Panthers had originally started. And we know they dismantled the Black Panthers, but there was a strong desire for a lot of black people, not with a Hebraic knowledge, but a knowledge that things were never going to get better for them while they live here in America, and that they needed to move to a country that was basically black from top to bottom. Jim Jones capitalized on that and was able, through his congregation, to get, because most of his congregation of Jim Jones were black people, and they wasn't just, ignorant black people. It was doctors, lawyers. He capitalized on that, and when he was coming under investigation for all the stuff that he was doing, he quickly was able to move all those people into Guyana, Georgetown, Guyana, in South America, by fear, by telling them, if we don't leave now, this is going to happen. And he was able to, basically take full control of those people, because they was operating out of fear. And we know, you can hear some of the tape recordings of when the stuff was going down in Georgetown, where there was and it wasn't, I want to correct something, it wasn't a quote unquote mass suicide. what a lot of the investigation found out later is that most the drinking of the Kool-Aid was the children. The children were given the cyanide in the Kool-Aid. Most of the adults, they found that they had been shot or had been injected with the cyanide. So it was a mass killing more than a mass suicide. But he was able to get those people down there by fear, and you can hear on the tape recording where he said, "Come on, let's go ahead and this will be our final act of social disobedience because we tired of running. They ain't never gonna let us rest in peace on this earth. So let's just get it over now with, which is just some, theories that, he never killed himself, and that the amount of people that it would have took to kill all those people in Georgetown, that they had to have some outside help. That's why I had a friend that I used to work with. He was in the 82nd Airborne at that time, and he said his unit was tasked with going down there to recover the bodies, and he said there was bodies all throughout the compound and in the jungle, and they had been sitting there for some of the bodies for weeks, and that they had to go scour the jungle because they was thinking that it had to be an army that had to help him with killing all these people. But it was all predicated, all that became possible because it predicated on fear. They did not have peace. They was operating in fear, and this is how he was able to get them. So we operate in fear in these end times, and we're not operating out of peace. That's why it's important to have the fruit and cultivate it in your life of the spirit, which is peace, in order for us to be effective and not operate in fear. And I'm not saying it's a natural inclination when you see all these things happening. It's a natural inclination to say, man, if my house is destroyed, how am me and my family going to be able to be taken care of? But we have to ask the Most High Yah, let that fruit of the Spirit, let that peace that passeth all understanding take charge of my life. Not only peace, but he said, operate out of blamelessness and not having any spot in your character. Mm-hmm. Meaning that if you see all these things transpiring upon the earth, and it's sort of somewhat saying that, all society is crumbling, so that all bets off, whatever kind of thing I need to do, I'm going to be justified in doing it. He said, no, when you're seeing all these things, he said, don't stop operating in the principles of a believer, being a kind, being blameless as according to the Torah, what is in the Bible to do about lying and stealing and whatnot. When we understand now, we are living in the lands of our captivity, so that's use common sense here. Yeah. Because I'm one to say, Yah understands, and I taught a lesson months ago about Yah gave us, his people, grace to be able to operate in the lands we in, because he knew that some of the laws that we had while we were in the land, we are not living in our land. So it's going to be hard for you to always keep the quote-unquote Sabbath the way that you would have if you were living in a land where everybody was operating the same way, so that we won't tie ourselves up and say, well, I can't have no job or whatever, because only the jobs that can take care of my family keep me from being able to do the Torah and everything. This is why we have to find out what are the weightier matters, but as much as possible that we would try to be as blameless as we can, by the leading of the Holy Ruach when all these things start happening. So, say for instance, with the natural disasters, if the natural disasters happen and maybe take out your neighbor's house. Don't take your house out. Your neighbor had to leave, and his house is wide open or whatever, and you take it as an opportunity to go over there and say, well, he's a Gentile anyway, and you take his stuff, break into his. He said, don't operate like that. Don't operate like that in this time. We want to be blameless.
Yes.
I think we talked a couple of lessons ago where I talked about Katrina and what happened with the black people down there that were faced with being in the Astrodome without any help from federal government, and how a lot of the people, when the film crews came in and seen them breaking into the store, what they didn't show you was that the shopkeepers wasn't there. That a lot of people left money at the cash register, but they needed to feed their family because the federal government at that time was not even mobilizing to come. So that's why I'm saying, just use our common sense here. If you got the money, you leaving the money there, because that's why the police was there. That's why when the film crews came in there, you seen the police in there grabbing stuff too, because the police was the ones that gave them the authority to go in there, because they too was cut off.
Yeah.
They was cut off. They was trapped in the Astrodome and nobody was coming, and no shop there. And the police was like, okay, let's just go into these stores right here. Let's get what we need, and let's go feed ourselves.
I think that also, when we're faced with trouble and tribulations, we have to ask God for wisdom and understanding on what to do, so when we do make a decision, we can be at peace in our mind that we had made the right decision on what to do during that time. Like the 3 Hebrew boys, they gave respect to Nebuchadnezzar. He was like, well, basically we know that you are the king, but we refuse to bow down to you, because they used that discernment and understanding. Yes. Because we know that they were chosen because of their smartness, the way they carried themselves, and Nebuchadnezzar wanted the best. So we know that they had that type of discernment and wisdom in him, and them rather. But we also have to be careful too when we make decisions to have a peace of mind, to use the understanding that God has given us and use wisdom on how to carry it out.
And that's a good point about not taking the occasion that they could have disrespected Nebuchadnezzar, not knowing them knowing that the captivity of them had just started. So they was knowing in themselves that even though we know, when we believe that Yah is going to save us out of the fiery furnace, he's not necessarily going to take that now that every Hebrew that's in captivity in Babylon, now we're going to be able to up and leave because Yah saved us out of the fiery furnace situation. That wasn't going to change our overall situation, but it was going to cause Nebuchadnezzar to show respect to the Hebrews that would now want to worship their Elohim without him interfering. Yeah. That's what it caused. And so, just like with the situation that my wife just made about them, in the situation I stated about us being blameless, we know, just getting back to the part about the Katrina, that those people that did go into the stores and got the food and everything, that they knew that as much as law-abiding and keeping according to being blameless, they had, and their intentions was not to go in there and loot, take liquor and all that stuff, but to get food and diapers for their children. Because the shopkeepers wasn't coming, but the federal government wasn't coming. So this is why we need to be, you need to be filled with the Ruach. You need to be, as my wife said, at peace. That peace that, I'm going in here. But then on the other hand, knowing that, if I got a neighbor here and I might have to go to the extraordinary thing of maybe having to, go and, as they say, commandeer. Now, I'm not going in there and trying to find his safe and take money and all that. I'm just going in there to get some food or whatever, you see, because like I said, not operating out of fear is what we gotta be engaged, because then that'll help us to sit there and think intelligently with our mind, and also be like a lesson I gave some time ago where I stated, this is why we pray that the prayer that Yeshua gave his disciples, said, lead us not into the temptation. Y'all, please, we know the devil wants to put us in situations like that. We are asking you every day when we get up, y'all, I know I'm going to have to be tempted. I'm going to have to go through some trials. But if some trials, I'm asking you, please don't let me get led into that. I don't want to be led into that situation. But if I do, Yeshua even said that he would tell you that Yah would help us through our faith. There's some of those mountains that would be in front of us. If we had enough faith, we could tell that mountain, be thou cast into the yonder sea. So that in every situation, Yah will get the glory. But we have to be living at such a level that Yah would give us the power, that those situations that will confront us, we will be able to cast them into the sea with our faith, speaking it out. So,
doing it in a peace of mind, not worrying, just knowing that you had consulted with God on what you needed to do for that situation, and at that time, whatever decision that we decide after prayer and communicating with God, that we'll know that we did it with a peace of mind.
Yes. And getting on to the rest of what Peter was talking about, Peter goes into a discourse about Paul and about operating in the wisdom according to some of the epistles that had been written by Paul. He was trying to tell the people, be careful about how you interpret it and your understanding of the epistles of Paul. This should give us a pause because we know that one of the things Paul continued state is that they kept telling people, that he was telling people that he was saying that the moral laws of Yah was being done away with the according to the what the Torah, and if you understand what we are saying, that there was no New Testament at that time. These were just letters. These letters that they had was not considered canon at that time. It was just letters that he was writing to the different assemblies. So if Paul at that time would have said, oh, the Torah is no good, then there wouldn't have been no foundations. So Peter was saying, be leery of people that come and tell you the things that Paul was stating in his letters, because some of the stuff, especially the Gentile believers, because they didn't have a background knowledge of the Torah and everything. He said, be careful how people are interpreting these things for you and taking them and misconstruing them and causing things to be said about what Paul or Shaul was saying when he really wasn't saying. And he said here, again, like he said, beware lest you be led away with the error and fall into fall from your own steadfastness. Meaning that one of the things, like what Paul told his people in Galatians, he said, the message that I first gave to you, stick with that message. He said, if someone else come to you and state to you any other message that I said in a different way, he said, let them be accursed. Because one of the things that Paul had stated to the Gentiles, that's why he said he was an apostle unto the Gentiles and the circumcision. He stated to them is, don't beware of the Judaizers, the ones that was coming in with the Talmud and coming in with the other heretical teachings and heretical things that the Yahudim himself was confused about. He said, don't let these people come into you and move you away from the simplicity of the believer's message. While at the same time, he was telling the Yahudim, you know that the Talmud is not what we need to go in. We need to go in with the understanding that the sacrificial death of Yeshua is what we is what we have to exalt. We have to lift that up. Now, Paul stated, I'm not preaching against the quote unquote the temple, that those that going into the temple and saying their prayers or whatever is necessarily wrong, but it is not the basis of your salvation. Now your salvation is in Yeshua, but the customs and things that they were doing, he was not, and it was, and what I meant by customs, now the Passover and Yom Kippur and all that stuff would only, that would just be a type of remembrance thing. Now it was not needed in the sense of that it was going to, but he wasn't telling, don't do it anymore, but don't do it for the fact that you think it's going to be the cleansing of you, because it's not. The sacrifice of Yeshua is final, but it is a good lesson object, and that's one of the reasons why I think Yah, through his son Yeshua, told him that eventually the temple was going to be destroyed and that you wouldn't have to deal with that anymore. It was not going to be a place to, even if you thought you wanted to continue on killing the lambs and all that stuff, he was going to take the temple out of the equation so that now the people could concentrate on the sacrifice that had been made by Yeshua. And so that Yah himself was going to move in such a way that he would take that out of the way, and those that had their confidence in Yeshua, they wouldn't be rattled by that because they knew he was going to get rid of it. It's the same thing like us here in America that came out. We came out of the quote-unquote Christian church, me and my wife, over a decade ago. But right now, it's people that's slowly coming out of the Christian church, whatever, but that if tomorrow they start ransacking and closing the quote-unquote churches, they would just go into start panic. But because me and my wife had came out of that system, we would just be looking at like, what are they getting all riled up about? But at one time when we was deep into the Christian church, we would have been rattled too. But now we ain't, because we know that a lot of the stuff that they was doing in there was not of Yah anyway, and that it was never the system that we should have been operating. Yah used it for what it was created for, but it never was for us. But some people come out sooner than others, so if they are still in, they're gonna be rattled because they still got their foundation in it. But that we would pray that Yah would remove our hope in any system. But Yeshua, I don't have no quote-unquote faith in the Hebrew Israelite. The foundation of my faith is laid on Yeshua.
Yes.
And I hope that's what your faith is, and that's what theirs was in the end times. He said that there is no other foundation that can be laid. That's what Paul said in 1 Corinthians, than that of Yeshua HaMashiach. Put your foundation in that, and therefore any system, any building, any publication, any YouTube channel that is removed, that's not gonna move you, and you won't be operating out of field. You'll have the law of Yeshua written on your heart, and you'll be able to, and you'll be filled and operating under the power of the Ruach. You won't be suddenly moved. You'll be like the three Hebrew boys who was stuck up in a court of magicians. They probably wasn't given a lot of opportunity to even be around their people because they was in the court of Nebuchadnezzar. But they had enough in them.
Yes.
Like when they first came in, they said they would determine in their heart they would not defile themselves with the things of Nebuchadnezzar. Even though they was in there, they were determined in themselves. They didn't have no scripture for it per se, but it was in their heart.
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes, they knew that through them being under Nebuchadnezzar, under the Babylon state, that God was going to deliver them because they had established that peace with him. And so the decisions that they made knowing that God was going to bring them out. And they wasn't afraid of him torturing them and telling them what he was going to do to them and they need to bow down. They just was at peace.
Yes.
And said, no, we're not going to do it.
Yes.
And we also have to be at peace when we do different things, when we make decisions, when it comes to our faith, our family, and just everyday things. We have to ask God for wisdom and understanding so that we can have that peace, knowing that we have made the right decisions according to his Torah.
Yeah. And also knowing that the word that we are reading is real. Now we know that there is, the debate about, the English and the Hebrew and the Paleo Hebrew and what books were removed and what books were added to. But this is where the salvation through Yeshua, being born again and filled with his Ruach, will help you gravitate to the things that will help, because we know one of the things that happened when the Hebrews went into captivity in Babylon is that they start mixing some of the Babylonian religions into their Talmud or whatever. So not all of the people that came out of the captivity in Babylon came out with a pure understanding of the Torah. They came up with a distorted view.
Yes.
And that's what Yeshua was confronted with when he came and was speaking against a lot of the things that they was doing that ended up becoming the traditions, what they call the traditions of the fathers, coming out of Babylon that they had incorporated. So that's why the being born again and filled with the Ruach is so important, because it is always being led by the Ruach.
Yes.
And he'll lead you into all truth. That's what Yeshua said. And he said, I am the way, the truth, and the light.
Yes.
Because even back then, like I was saying, the people was being taught Talmudic teachings by the Pharisees and Sadducees and the lawyers at that time. And Yeshua said, I came to give you life and that more abundantly. Yeah. And he came to bring them back into the pure commandments of Yeshua and get rid of all the fluff. And in this climate that we have so many different understandings, not just in the Christianity thing, but also in the Hebrew Israelite, whatever, what certain people believe about discharge, Joseph theory, flat earth, smoking marijuana, where women can, what role women have or whatever. You better be led by the Ruach. And see, this is one of the kind of I don't want to say the good thing, but that's just say what, like it is. That's one of the kind of good things that I like, that me and my wife, we came up in the Christian church, and we had to deal with the heresies that was going on in there, and we learned how to deal with heretical things, how to approach them, so that this stuff that y'all dealing with, this is small, but this is kind of small potatoes compared to the kind of things that we was dealing with coming out of Christianity. That's why we made the ultimate decision that the stuff that we were dealing with Christianity, if something was wrong with the Christianity that we were dealing with, that it can be fixed. To make, for example, at one time, it was this show on Blog Talk Radio that I used to participate in. It was called Church Folks Revolution, and a guy named TJ. And if TJ ever see this video, I really enjoyed the opportunity that I had to interact on the show and everything. But one of the things that I came to understand, because one of the things that we was purposing to do was to try to get black people to see that the Christian church was really hurting them. My thinking was, okay, we're gonna come out of the Christian church, but what we're gonna come out to? Black people don't have nothing but the Christian church. And so kind of what happened, I guess, people kind of I don't want to say left away from doing that, but it was always, okay, the Christian church is bad, but this guy in the Christian church is still good. You can still go to him, but it was still the system. And that's why I said, they're going to come out, but what they're going to come out, why would I tell them to come out, but then send them back to somebody I said, there needs to be something else that we can go to, and that's when I started studying and understanding that this thing that we had in the whole construct that we had got into in Christianity was never meant for us to succeed, even this whole Western mindset, and that we really needed to have a faith in Yeshua and Him alone. And maybe that's probably what was needed in order for me and my wife finally to be for the Yah prepare us to receive the message that we are the people, and that the way we was living, how they had us living in this country, was never the way we were supposed to live in the first place. Which made it, and I think if you find a lot of people testimony that at our age that came into the Hebrew understanding, you'll find that a lot of them came the same way. They got out of Christianity and they said, well, now what? What are we going to do? Whatever. And now that you are in this Hebrew understanding and you seeing all this confusion and all this kind of stuff, you're not moved, because we already seen this and we understand it's just a more light. I'm going to take the things that of light coming out of where I was at, and I'm going to hold on to that. And y'all are going to bring into our fellowship those that He will bring, but we're not going to, do like we did when we came out of Christianity and we rushed into certain things and people and got into fellowship with certain peoples and found out, man, that's not the answer. I would tell you the same thing. Don't be led by the Ruach. Don't operate out of fear. Be careful of false teachings, because we ran into a lot of things that, me and my wife went back and studied and said, hell, we've been saying this stuff all these years, thinking it was in the Bible, and it's not in the Bible, and we've been telling people this. We need to slow down before we get anything. That's why even with this quote-unquote Hebraic thing, there's been some teachers that we might have kind of listened to or whatever for a while, and then we start, just checking the blocks and say, hold up, that's not.
Yeah, we weren't at peace with it.
Let's pull back away from that. Yeah. But they was always saying, you gotta stick with this. You gotta stick with this. And I was like, no. And you can see right now is a big push, because you see all these natural disasters that some people are trying to get you to pull into fellowship with them, but that they have a lot of errors according to like what he said here. He said, don't be led away with the error of the wicked and fall from your steadfastness. Your steadfastness said that I believe in Yeshua and I will not have no fellowship with anybody that's not in there. And you say, okay, well, just for this moment, I'll get with them so I can, get some knowledge that they got, but I know that they don't do it. Don't do it and be led away. You'll be led away, because then you'll be like some of the people, like when me and my wife first was studying some of this stuff, now you see some of the people that were starting in the Hebraic thing. Some of them, they don't even believe in nothing now. They don't believe, they don't believe in no New Testament, which, like I said, it was no New Testament. These were just letters that Paul done wrote, verifying what but they are, I do believe they're inspired by Yah. But there's some people that don't believe in Yeshua. They don't believe in, and they would, but at the beginning, they wasn't like that. They came out of the Christian church. But I don't believe that if you was born again and you was a new creature, that you would be led away like that. And I used to always say that in my understanding when I was in the quote unquote Christian church, I used to say to myself, half the problem that was with the Christian church was the fact that most of the people in the Christian church was not born again.
Yeah.
I heard a preacher tell me that a long time ago. He said, the problem that I've had with my ministry is that for the most of my pastorate, he said, I've been trying to pastor goats as if they were sheep. Not understanding that every time I thought I would solve a problem that they had to help them understand how to live, they would go right back into it. But it was because their nature was to continue to do what they did because they wasn't born again. And so you get those kind of people coming out of the quote unquote Christian church and they come into this where there is no emphasis on being born again. Man, they're going to feel right at home. They're going to be, and that's why you find in the ranks of a lot of these camps filling up. And you look at the attitudes of some of these cats, you see them filling up with men, which should be a warning kind of like to you, is if you look at what is a major concentration of these a lot of these camps filled with these men is oppression of women, multiplying to themselves wives, stuff that's unbiblical.
Yes.
Why would you think that their ranks would fill up with men? That a lot of them, if you go back, you will find that probably a lot of them did come out of the Christian church, and they was probably womanizers there. Yes. And now that's, I came out of that heresy of Christianity. No, you came out of it because you understood that even though it had a facade of, trying to follow, they a lot of times they weren't going to openly, live sinful. They might be hypocrites, where they preach one thing and then have, 4 women on the side. But when you come into camp, you can openly have women, multiple women, and no one be able to criticize you because they in the same situation as you. They got a wife and they got concubines. They got marriage contracts and all this other kind of stuff. Or as I hear some of these people saying, some of them saying when they have sex with the woman that makes them their wife. All this kind of heretical stuff that's going on that's causing these ranks of these camps to fill up with these, some not just young men, but some older guys too, that you better be careful. Like Peter said, don't be led away with this error.
Yes.
Don't be led away. You got to be sure that your calling and your election is sure. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about call to ministry. I'm talking about call and election unto salvation. Yes. Because remember what Paul said in Romans. He said, all Israel is not Israel. And then going to Romans 13, where he's talking about that it's knowing the time that we need to wake up. We don't need to be asleep no more. We don't need to go around, in a stupor. We don't need to go around, with our head in the sand anymore. It's time for us to be proactive about our faith.
Yes.
It's time for us to, take this word and really read it, because I'm going to tell you one of the things, and this started happening right after, a couple of years after we had came away from the quote-unquote Christian church, when we started going back and reading some of the scriptures and stuff, and I was like, man, how did I miss that, man? I've been reading this all this time, And I came to understand, man, I had all these study materials and everything, but was not being really led by the Ruach. You got to be careful
Right.
about how you are too influenced by men on how you study and what you're hearing from the Ruach for yourself.
Yes.
Because you'll read a scripture and then you got their understanding superimposed on your in your brain, and you'll be looking at it through their eyes, which is what the taking over of the manuscripts by our enemies. They did. They imposed the white Jesus on us. They imposed the image of the white man being in all the Bible stories that we read. And so now that we broke out of that, let's not go back into another form of that, where even though the characters are in our mind now are black people, but yeah, our way of looking at them is still heretical. It's not. We not looking at it the right way. We gotta wake up and see it clearly. We gotta, rightly divide the word of faith. That's why I would tell you, get rid of all paintings, black or white, of Yeshua. Get rid of all statues, anything, because he said don't make no image at all. Don't make an exception. So I don't understand what I'm saying. I understand that, sometimes people put up stuff on their sites and they might have the Yeshua with the white afro and the dark skin or whatever. I'm not telling you, you can't go watch that person's channel, but I'm saying for yourself in your home, in your mind, let's not get into that, because more importantly, we need to get the operation of living out the life of Yeshua, not living out the complexion of him. He said the flesh profiteth us nothing. He said, I am spirit. Now when he came into his own, looking just like them, acting like them. He said, what? They didn't receive him. They received his outward man, but what he had to say to them, they didn't receive. So that's receive what he said, not receive the way he looked. Because there's a lot of people boasting about, hey, he's a black Yeshua and all this, but they don't believe he's the son of Elohim. They believe he was the son of Joseph, and they believe the Holy Ruach was a female and all this stuff. He said, my words. He said, you don't believe my words. He wants you to believe what he said. All right? And so, Romans 13, where, he said, our salvation is near when we first believe. Now, he said, this is Paul talking. He said, the night is far spent, meaning back there, he was saying, you know what? We right on the edge of the dawning of the new coming of Yeshua. He was saying that back then. So where you think we at now? So he said the day is almost at hand. The daylight. He said, let's cast off the works of darkness. Let's not be going on and on and on, thinking that I got a few more wild oats I need to sow. He said, let's cast off darkness and let us put on the armor of light. Let's put on the armor of light. He said, let us walk honestly as in the day, not in riotous and drunkenness. Now in here, he was talking about drunkenness. Drunkenness through, drinking and chambering, sexual immorality, going from chamber to chamber. The word chambering, I think it had to do with you going from one bedroom where they was having a party to another, just riding, and wantonness and strife, meaning just wanting sin. Like, we got plenty of time. Yeshua ain't coming back. I'm going, and hearing about some of this stuff that's going on in these churches where you got pastors prostituting out teenage girls. You go into some of these camps and they got women having to flee for their life and all this other kind of stuff. He talking about in strife, verse 13, envying each other, churches envying churches, camps envying camps, all of this stuff. Teachers envying teachers, pastors envying pastors. He said, let's put on Yeshua HaMashiach and make no provision for the flesh. Does he mean that all you people that's prepping and getting ready and stuff out there are wrong? No, I wouldn't say that you are. But he said, you know, if you got your prepping stuff right and you got food stored up for a year or whatever and water and it, but you ain't born again, you ain't saved, or you ain't walking in Yeshua, he said, it ain't gonna do you no good.
Prophet, yeah.
And, I mean, what good does it mean that you was make it through all of this stuff, and then when Yeshua come, he gonna, when he's separating the nations, the goats from the sheep, that he said, you a goat, get away. You know, I went through all of this stuff. I survived the nuclear holocaust, and I survived the camps and you know, the FEMA camps or whatever, and come and find out, you know, that goes back to 1 Corinthians the 13th chapter, where Paul talked about what is real agape. He said, though I gave my body to be burnt and have not agape, which is one of the fruit of the spirit, he said, I have nothing.
Yes.
You know, so you can come in and say, you know what, I went and I did all this stuff. You know, I learned the survival techniques or whatever, but I wasn't, you know, born again. He said to fulfill the lust thereof, the lust of your flesh. Because I'm telling you right now, there's some crazy stuff going on with you know, in the quote unquote black Christian church, in these camps and everything.
Yes.
I really don't see a differentiating because of the sexual immorality that is widespread with this pedophilia and other sexual sins, that some of it is open, some of it is hidden. And also the degradation of the women, but also on the flip side, in the rise of female empowerment through witchcraft. I see that too.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And in witchcraft, I'm not always talking about that they would be actually casting spells and everything, but they might be putting on certain certain people and teachings that if you're not careful, that, okay, like for Oprah, you know, it's a lot of you know, black women that they have a cursory following of Oprah, but it's just some that are deep into following her. And if you know anything about her, she's into a lot of she has a lot of new age gurus that she has brought on her shows, and she follows a lot of stuff. And so that if you are a deep follower of her, you will find yourself being a you know, on into some of the same teaching that she had, and that you might just add your Christianity or your Hebrew Israelite along with the other teachings that, and say, well, there's many ways to Yah, and also this move, because what you're seeing now is a move toward the feminine God worship, where they're stating that God is a female, or the Baphomet, which is half male and half female. And so you see a rise in that as a backlash against the black male.
Yes.
Kind of rejection of the black female having any voice, or exert his manhood in silencing any protest that the black female might have, whether it might be heretical or not.
Yes.
You know, and that's one of the things that you see before the European came to Africa. They said that for the most part, they were an integral part of the leadership in Africa, like the queen having a throne beside the queen mother having a throne beside the king, and a lot of some of the great warriors of Africa being female, fighting right alongside the men, but not to the exclusion of their femininity, but because there's the necessity of it. You even find it in the Bible, where in the book of Judges, where you had Deborah, and then you had Jebel. I forgot her name, where she had killed the Canaanite king and drove the stake through his head, but she had been apparently doing some milking of some goats or cows or whatever, and told him to go into the tent while she went and got him some milk, but she took that stake while he was asleep and drove it through his head. That it was more of a necessity thing, that the black female could be a warrior in that sense, but never that it was to negate the male being the protector, but she was not going to sit by innocently and allow herself to be taken. That's why you find in the slave journals where a lot of the black females did fight back against the Europeans when they came and got them and had them on the ship. They didn't just willingly, let them rape them. And we find that how a lot of them, when they did get on the ship and they seen that the situation was such that they would be vulnerable, or they couldn't fight back, they would just jump overboard with their babies and everything, because they was like, this is the best way I can fight back, is by just killing myself and not letting this devil violate me. And I let my wife say something.
Yes, I believe that the woman has the greatest job ever on the earth, because she is submissive. She shows a power that a man doesn't have. She's compassionate, she's loving, and she's a nurturer, which a child needs. And then the child that grows up under this will learn how to be more of a man. Because you don't need a child that beats. Sometimes they beat on their mom or beat on their girlfriend. That's not a good example of a man that we would want to have. We need them to be able to respect, love, and show kindness to them, and accept them just like their counterpart. Like what we have. He's the man of the house, but he yet, respects my decisions once we have come to the conclusion that it will be good for us and the family. So I love you for that.
Yes. And so, this thing of the black man and the black woman is this was again because of the fall. But Yah did promise both Adam and Eve. He said the seed that would come from y'all union would one day crush the head of the serpent. But he never he let the woman know that the natural inclination for you from the fall is that you would rebel against the leadership, but then also to the man, he said that because you listen to the voice of the woman, not because you wasn't there. And that's one of the things that you need to read, apparently, and I could be wrong. You tell me, when it said that the woman took the fruit that she had and gave to her husband with her, my reading of that is that Adam was right there when all this was going down, and instead of him stopping it, he continued to allow it to go on. And then once the woman got that enlightenment, she had enough of the fallen knowledge to get him to come into that, that he could have maybe stopped it right there and said, "No, don't touch it." That maybe he was letting her be like, let Mikey try it, let her try it, let's see what happened to her. And while, because did you ever notice how you know, when Yah passed out the sentence, he said, hey, the sin gene is going to, the sin, knowledge of the sin is going to be passed down through the man, not through the woman. Because the man was first disobedient. And he could have, I believe, he could have stopped it maybe. But that once he seen it, he was like, she's telling me how it is. It's good. My eyes been enlightened. Here, won't you try it? Who knows, you know, what would have happened. But yeah, it's a partnership, and you got to have both operating in order to stop the serpent knowledge from taking over your relationship and your fellowship amongst believers, in your relationship with your family, your wife, and if you have fellowship with other people, you have to be careful of the serpentine knowledge coming in the end, because with the rise of the message of Yeshua, there was also the rise of antinomianism, which was, okay, now the law done away with, you don't have to worry about, you know, living right or whatever, grace covers all. That's a serpent seed teaching. Or the other abstinism, where no marriage and all this kind of stuff, keep yourself celibate and all this other kind of stuff. That was another serpentine. So he said, be careful all these teachings that was going to come out, you know, which right here in Romans 13, that's antinomianism. Romans 13, that when he was talking about the wantonness and the drunkenness, you know, where some people say you can just do whatever now if Christ died for all, which we now understanding that he died. He said those that were predestined in him and foreknowledge of him. So we don't know, you know, he said those that endure to the end shall be saved, so that you should live every day and say, Yah, I want to endure to the end. How do I know I'm predestined that you're going to endure to the end? That's how. So I'll get up and pray. I don't take it for granted, you know. And so it's some more scriptures here. I'm not going to read those because we at an hour right now. But I would say a few more things, and I'm going to let my wife interject, is that you got a lot of people that are in a fearful state right now in the black community about a lot of the things. And just like in the late 1800s, the rise of Adventism and Jehovah's Witness, where a lot of people thought that Yeshua was coming back. People were using fear and everything to get people to sell their properties and move off to these compounds with them and all these kind of things. And then when Yeshua didn't come, some of these people's faith was shipwrecked. I want to tell you, be careful of letting people gather you into these different, I don't want to say compounds. They might be retreats. They might call them whatever, or it might get you to flee Babylon by going to another country or whatever. Please, 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 please be leery of that. You remember what Yeshua said? He said, they tell you Yeshua's in the desert place, don't believe him. Said if he's in a secret chambers, inner chambers, don't listen to him. I'm telling you, this stuff, and this is not new. This is happening over and over. Just because you think you in the quote unquote Hebrew, Hebraic in understanding or whatever, this is nothing new. This has been going on in the Christian church for a long time, and the devil don't use no different playbook. That's what happened at Jonestown. That's what happened in that thing in Dimona with the man that in the 60s, Ben Amin or whatever his name is, and went over there to Israel and the Dimona desert or whatever, and you know the stuff that happened with that, and there's many others that have happened. And don't think that the federal government you know, and the FBI and all these other COINTELPRO things, that they probably rises up for this to happen, so that you beware even with the year of return thing, you know, because why is America building the world's largest drone base in Nigeria, in Africa? It's going to be the largest drone base, and they got a large drone base in East Africa, in Somalia. So we got to be careful, you know. I mean, I'm not saying if that's why we gotta be born again. We don't know that if the Ruach is leading us somewhere, that it is Him. But it's a good message that I listened to last week, and I'm more inclined to believe that when it's time for us to be gathered to whatever it is that Yah is gonna just use His angels. His angels, like He said, His angels will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against the stone. And I think, you know, to me, that would be, I would hope that would probably be the best way, because if they bear you up wherever it needs to be, where He said the angels are going to gather His people from the 4 points of the earth, then you can't go wrong with that. It ain't no person coming, because you know it's a supernatural being that's carrying you to where you need to go. But that's for another day. I'm going to let my wife finish up.
Just let the Holy Ruach lead you, guide you, give you understanding, knowledge, and wisdom, and you will be at peace.
Yes, and I want to thank y'all again for listening. And again, I want to tell you, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up. Please share, and please subscribe, and please leave a comment. Be blessed.